what we can do. All right, so Paige, you're having difficulty coming up with an idea. Tell everybody title and author of your book. Tenth Circle by Jodi Picoult. And we've talked about this before in this class, right? So, protagonist's name, again, she's Tracy. Tracy has been raped by her ex-boyfriend, right? And leaves town, goes to Alaska. Okay, at the end of the book, she goes to Alaska. And in the beginning, or most of the book, people don't believe her, right? And then eventually, mom kills the ex-boyfriend. Okay, so we've got some of this. Now, we've done some of the brainstorming on the musings. And the musings are all well and good, but the musings are, how shall I say this, informal, not as strict as I'd like you to be with the comparative analysis. And I'd like you to bring your mind to a couple concepts, college-level concepts that I didn't really understand until years into college, but really help me understand things right now. The concepts difference between structure and content. The content of a novel, the content of a nonfiction book, is the what. And I just asked and reminded myself of some of Paige's what. What's going on in the novel. Now, what I'm a little bit less clear on, because I've never read the novel, is the structure, and that is the how. The how question. How does Jodi Picoult tell the story? I think we all understand, to some extent, what the story is. However, it's the how that I need you to focus on, because the how forms the device. And in second period today, we had some discussions about some students' work that really focused on that how. And once we focused on the how, I think a lot of students saw how, wow, we're talking about literature. We're not talking about this story. We're talking about literature in general. And we're making observations about authors and their style. Now, Paige and everybody else must focus on this. That's true literary analysis. So let's ask some questions. Paige, tell me about the narrative perspective. First, second, third person. Well, it wouldn't be second, but first, third person, limited, omniscient. First from all the characters. So we shift first, chapter to chapter. Oh, excellent. Okay. But it's shifting first. Yeah. Wow. Weird. Shifting first person perspective. Okay. And talk to me about conflicts. So we have internal conflicts, right? We have personal conflicts, person to person. Yeah. Do we have social conflicts, person to society? Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we have. No, this is good. And this is not confusion. This is clarity. And the fact is that we have a web of conflicts. I've already got two ideas going from what's up there. Okay. So I'm thinking structurally. When I think structurally, I'm thinking about literary devices. I've gone first to narrative perspective. I've gone next to conflicts. What else might I go to? One. Plot, conflict, and narrative perspective. What other literary devices do you know? Okay, is there any symbolism, or are there any allusions? I believe there's an allusion in the title, right? An allusion to Dante's Inferno? Okay, so strong use of allusion. Is this the one with the comic book thing going through it? Yeah. Okay, so she also has, isn't one of the characters a writer of graphic novels? Yeah, her dad. The character on comic is supposed to be. Picoult is creating a tension between a real and an imagined world. The imagined world is the world created by her father writing the graphic novel, which, if I'm correct, intersperses with the regular narrative. Go back and forth. That gives us something also. Okay, so just 4 pieces. And we could probably keep going. We could talk about characterization. We could talk about imagery. We could talk about the development of setting. We could talk about the development of setting on multiple levels: physical setting, historical setting, cultural setting, and so on. But I think we've got enough. Which one do you think you might want to deal with? In other words, which one do you think you could see that as similar or strikingly different from somebody else's novel, book, short story? Well, not short story, but full-length book. Silence Descends. John? Okay, so a web of conflicts. Be careful, though, because what you want to do is you want to compare your book to good writing. Because if you compare it to bad writing, not only do you have analytical comparison, but you also have evaluation going on, with one being bad and the other being good. And it might not seem like it, but evaluation is actually a different level of thinking that would confuse the issue and make it more difficult. So let's think about the web of conflicts. John, can you think of another story that might also have a web of conflicts? And by that I don't mean like in a murder mystery we might have, like an Agatha Christie, we might have 7 different personal conflicts. But we have personal, internal, social, maybe even environmental thrown on top. I would think To Kill a Mockingbird. You've got internal, you've got personal, and you've got social. You have a web of conflicts. Seems to me, Paige, if I'm correct, that the 10th Circle does a pretty good job not only of depicting one person's conflict, but really the character and nature of an entire town, right? And it seems to me also that Harper Lee is trying to do that same thing. And how do we do that? How are they both accomplishing it? Through the conflicts, through a web of conflicts. We have a claim, folks. Ding. That's right. Ding, ding, ding. Paige, you ready to type? In the 10th Circle and To Kill a Mockingbird, oh, don't worry about it. You could do TTC if you wanted to and TKAM. In the 10th Circle and To Kill a Mockingbird. It's okay. I think you're doing fine. Comma. Picoult and Lee. I'm looking for a verb. I always use develop. I don't want to use develop. I'm getting bored with it. 10th Circle. Interconnect. A variety of conflicts. To develop the character of a town. Develop the character of a town. Develop the character of a town. So you're not characterizing a person, you're characterizing a town. Good. Now, Paige, I think this is very good in a couple different ways, and there's only one drawback. First of all, it's different and interesting. So it could create some interest because it's not the same old literary analysis. Secondly, because there's so much going on in here, you could find examples and details and supporting information all day long. 700 words should be no problem. Okay? So those are 2 benefits of this. A third benefit, it's pretty sophisticated. If you can get behind this and write this, you're dealing on a different level of literature that would be pretty nice. Third, or the one problem with it, is that it is a little bit sophisticated, a little bit complex. You've got a fair amount to deal with. Now you're talking about 2 authors doing the same thing. But I think that this claim works. Julianne, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to ask, so for her, she would write all of her 700 words about this one similarity.
Yes.
So is that
good question. In fact, that's an excellent segue into what I have next. You have 3 different ways of going about this. Okay? And I think I'm going to answer your question by explaining these, Julianne. First is straight comparison. Pages is straight comparison. And that means that the only level of difference is the fact that we're dealing with 2 books. Everything else is similar. Same device, basically. Same effect, basically. Picoult and Lee are both using this layered conflict technique to show you what a town is like. Because towns are not just one conflict. People may be one conflict. Towns are multiple conflicts because it's a variety of people, physical place, social institutions, all sorts of stuff going on with a town. You want to fully present a town? Present a web of conflicts, and you'll do it. Lee knows that, and Picoult knows that. So, same device, same effect. Ray Bradbury in Fahrenheit 451 and William Golding in Lord of the Flies use fire to symbolize the energy of a community. One device, one effect. Success. One device, one effect. You have 2 options for contrast. Here's your first. First contrast option. Remember what I said before in contrast. You can't just contrast 2 devices and 2 effects, because then you end up with a logical mess. You must have a level of similarity, even in contrast. Your first level of similarity is in device. They both use the same device, but to different effects.
So even though we're writing comparative, we're still at the contrast then, as long as they have some similarity, right?
Yes. Yes.
What if you kind of want to use both?
You want to contrast the devices and the effects?
No, I want to like contrast and contrast.
You want to speak up?
I want to compare and contrast.
You are comparing and contrasting here.
Oh, really?
You see that because the device is the same. What's your level of comparison and contrast? Explain your idea to me so I can.
Okay, well, like I want to compare that the families are like really similar because they both lose a son.
Right.
They both have mothers that kind of fall apart. And
Right.
The dad tries to hold the family together, the sons lose out. But then it's different because at the end, like in the book that I'm reading, like the Deep End of the Ocean, they come back together. Like once they get their son back,
Mhm.
when the mom was weak and the son is still dead.
What's the other one?
Ordinary people.
All right. So you're talking about one ending in integration and the other ending in disintegration?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you're saying same conflict, but they resolve it differently?
Mm-hmm.
So the device is the conflict and the effect is the difference in resolution,
Okay.
right? Or, I've got another way of going about this, and hold on, Sydney, I've got another idea on it, but let me get to this. This is my claim for that musing that I showed you, that example, and this is the first contrast claim. Both Harper Lee in To Kill a Mockingbird and Stieg Larsson in The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest develop courtroom scenes, but while Lee uses hers to develop her theme, Larsson uses his simply to resolve the plot of the novel trilogy, One Device, Two Effects. A little bit more complicated, and we've already seen how that sentence can be broken up into other sentences, farmed out kind of through the introduction paragraph and so on. This is your second contrast. They have different devices, but the same effect. And Sydney, here's where I'm going with yours. The different devices are the different resolutions. There's the level of difference. What are they both doing? What are both authors doing? They're both exploring the loss within a family, the effects of loss on a family, right? So one is using a disintegration resolution, the other is using an integration resolution, but they're both using them to explore the effects of loss. So that's a different way of looking at the same thing. It depends upon how you frame it, but you could see it as this or the other. But what I would do, I would try to draw them together either on the level of the effect or the device. Otherwise, they're going to drift apart too much, and you will be confused as a writer. Julianne?
So, for mine, I wanted to compare mine to
Yes.
But then we talked about how like the authors have different perceptions of suicide. Like Picult thinks that it causes destruction. Shakespeare thinks it heals.
Oh, good. Yes. So they have different ways of exploring suicide. They use the plot device of suicide to present different themes. So the similarity is on the level of device. Yeah, the themes, which is the message, the overall message of, or some sort of social observation of what we've got going on there. Jodi Picoult, see, in the pact, let me rephrase, because it's a different option for doing this. Jodi Picoult in The Pact and William Shakespeare in Romeo and Juliet both feature suicides as a result of social pressure. However, Picoult sees that suicide as a destructive, there's another word I'm looking for and I'm not, it was something similar to disintegrating, destructive force within society, while Shakespeare sees it as,
Could I see this within a family?
yeah, within a family, while Shakespeare sees it as a redeeming force, or redemptive force, or a constructive force. Got hands all over the place. Yeah. Are we? Keep your hands up if you just have an individual question for clarification. Nora.
For mine.
No. That's your idea. I mean, a clarification on the assignment. Let's deal with those first. Gretchen.
When you gave her claim, is she allowed to put however at the beginning of the sentence?
No. I was just riffing.
Okay.
You would change that.
I don't know how I would do should I just do straight comparison since they're both nonfiction?
What did you choose as your second?
Flags of Our
Flags
Fathers.
of Our Fathers. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's deal with Michael's, and then I'll go through other people's examples. Paige, could we make sure that keyboard finds its way all the way over to Michael? Michael, while it's winding its way, talk to me a little bit about your idea.
Well, they both authors create like you feel respect for all of the characters.
Right.
All of them, no matter who they are.
How?
By telling stories of what they've done.
Are they short stories? Are they little, what we would call anecdotes?
Well, in Flags of Our Fathers it is, but
Right.
not in Grace Game Ever Played.
Okay.
It's the story of two golfers, chapter by chapter.
All right. Here we go. In great, whichever one you want to lead with, in Greatest Game Ever Played and Flags of Our Fathers. Yeah, that's good. And Flags of Our Fathers, comma, what's his name? Uimet or something? Foof. Sorry, I taught Flags of Our Fathers. It's one of the greatest acronyms. That and Girl with a Pearl Earring, which was GWAPE. In these two novels, whatever his last name is, Uimet is, yeah, or Ume, yeah. How's it pronounced? We met.
Is it the author? Do you want the author or
Yeah.
the character?
No, always the author. Always the author. Always the author.
That's Mark Frost.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Frost and Bradley. Frost and Bradley develop admiration and sympathy for their subjects. Remember, they're not characters. Everybody take note, please. They're not characters when it's nonfiction. When it's nonfiction, non-narrative, they are subjects. Okay? They're not characters. Character is an artificial creation of a literary mind.
Wait, what was the other one?
Admiration and sympathy for their subjects. It's fine. Period. But, comma, Frost uses an extended conflict throughout the book to accomplish this. Whereas Bradley depends more on individual anecdotes. Okay, so let me summarize where I'm going with his idea. Michael has given me that he feels both men want to develop respect. Now, I've read Flags of Our Fathers and not It's the Greatest Game Ever Played, so I'm thinking Flags of My Fathers, a lot of war stories, a lot of individual stories of people charging up beaches, and this kid who made it through into this awesome thing, and this kid who died, and he was 17 years old, and he threw himself on a grenade, blah, 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 blah. All these stories, kind of in almost shotgun fashions, like so many stories that I develop respect and admiration just for the entire fighting man, the character of the fighting man overall. So I know that effect. And I'm saying, okay, he uses anecdotes, and that's why I asked Michael, does Frost use individual anecdotes of golfers? And he says, no, it's chapter by chapter, this conflict between these two guys. All right, they're trying to do the same thing, but they're structurally, once again, structurally using two very different approaches. One is using individual anecdotes, very short stories, sometimes the space of a few sentences, sometimes the space of a long paragraph to develop this. Whereas Frost uses an extended conflict throughout the book. And all Michael's got to do is support that. And it's pretty easy. With Flags of Our Fathers, you have any one of dozens of anecdotes to choose from, and then you could talk about the development of the conflict in Greatest Game Ever Played. So that works just fine. Pri, you had your hand up, right? Yeah?
Oh, okay. Mine was like comparative.
Okay, keyboard.
Okay.
Come on, let's do these fast, because I know a lot of people want help.
Mine was room, and like,
Give me what you think you're doing.
I have no idea.
Oh, I find that hard to believe. Room, what's your secondary subject?
Like my other one?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of 1984 because that was kind of like they made them believe something else.
Oh.
Because like halfway through the book when he gets out, he like loves the room and the guy loves Big Brother, but I'm not sure if that was.
So you're talking about these complex psychological reactions to some sort of intellectual oppression,
Yeah.
right? All right. In Room, this kid lives in this room. How big is the room?
Like 11 by 11.
11 by 11. And he knows nothing else. Now, Pri is automatically thinking, wait a minute, Winston kind of lives in a room too. It's called Oceania. And when he lives in that room, he doesn't really know what's going on outside. Nobody in Oceania knows what's going on outside because they're just fed lies all the time and they never actually go anywhere. So in a sense, Winston's living in a room too. And the interesting psychological reaction, by the way, from what I understand, this is psychologically realistic, is that the oppressed victim comes to love and become dependent upon that artificial reality. So is there a moment in Room when Jack says, I miss room, or I need room, or I'm really having trouble getting rid of room?
Like he kept asking like, when are we going back?
Perfect. Then here's what you do. In Room and 1984, Donahue and Orwell use their fictional protagonists to depict psychologically realistic reactions to abuse, oppression, intellectual oppression. I'm not sure what you need there. Yeah, something like that. Okay. I like this. Same reasons I liked Paige's idea. Same reason I like Michael's idea. It goes beyond and says, hey, we're talking about something beyond these stories. But Pre's claim includes a burden that the others don't. Does anybody see what that burden is? She's included some language in here which says that she's going to do something in her paper. Omar.
Kind of has to analyze like characters, psychologically.
Well, she does have to analyze the characters, so she has to give character sketches of the fictional protagonists, especially in relation to their love of Big Brother or their love of Room. That's correct. There's something else extra literary that she needs to do.
Well, just to find out like how real people react to this.
A tiny little bit of research that you need to do. And that's fine. And include the research and cite it. It'll make it a stronger paper. Probably more interesting to you too. Won't take very long. Any number of people has published any number of works on the concept of abduction, hostage situations, this sort of psychological torture and oppression. And I can't remember what the name of the, anybody know the psychological name of the effect when the hostage victim starts to love their abductor? Stockholm syndrome. Thank you, Alex. So the Stockholm syndrome it has a name. You can find this on Wikipedia, but don't ever cite Wikipedia. What you do is you find it on Wikipedia, then you scan down to the links, and you find authoritative resources on your subject. And then you link to those resources, and you cite those. Hmm? What?
The authority of not using Wikipedia primary source.
Connor, you could make a Wikipedia entry. I rest my case.
You ever reached out with Darwin? I said he had a dragon.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've got some little research is necessary, but it will be fine. And now we've got psychological realism in literature is a huge topic, by the way. If you study literature at a college campus, they'll talk about psychological realism, which authors have it and which authors don't. And Orwell is seen as being psychologically realistic. All right, John and
Screwtape letters.
yeah, Screwtape letters. C.S. Lewis.
Is the bias plays the difficult or like non-typical perspective?
Are you talking about the perspective or the epistolary form of it?
Like the perspective of the devil.
The perspective of the devil. So you're talking about a narrator who is unique and different from what we expect. So we're talking about religious issues, and we're adopting the perspective of the devil. So it's the unlikely narrator. All right. Do we have unlikely narrators anywhere else?
Wait, is it fiction? Well, I mean,
That was an awesome question.
Wait, isn't the book thief from the perspective of death?
I haven't read it. Is it?
Because we read it in middle school, and it's from the perspective of death. I don't know.
But John, I don't want you to have to read a new book. So if you want to explore perspective, and you could explore perspective, then you want to find a perspective that either is very different but accomplishes the same purpose, or is very similar but accomplishes either a different or similar purpose. So think about purpose. What is C.S. Lewis's ultimate purpose is to basically be pretty pro-Christian, right?
Well, it's just like setting like or have his readers like see it from a different point of view. What
To
they're
see
all-
what is it.
his
I mean,
points about like different Christian things.
right. So his points about goodness, morality, redemption, the soul, those sorts of issues, correct? Can we think of, have you read any other books that might approximate those sorts of religious themes? I'm thinking of The Shack, which is really popular right now. Okay, so if not, if you can't think of that, then how about thinking of an unlikely, I'm sorry?
The letters, because it's also written in letters.
So you could think about the letter format, and you could talk about Perks of Being a Wallflower, as you've done before. Dracula uses a lot of letters in epistolary form also. So either of those. John, whichever way you go, I think you're on the right track because you're thinking of the structure, the analytical structure. So think of narrative perspective, think of the epistolary form. By the way, those of you who don't understand, epistolary form means that it is a novel written through letters. So if you're familiar with the perks of being a wallflower, you're familiar with this form, because the entire novel is written in a series of letters. And if you ever had the opportunity to, and I highly recommend it, reading Bram Stoker's Dracula, it's told exclusively through journals, letters, and news clippings, which is a pretty super cool device. So think of either of those, and they could work. Ian.
Okay, so I want to compare the passage to worst case, and both those are my IRAs, and I want to talk about how they both.
Now, which one's the one in Manhattan with the murder?
That's worst case.
Worst case, and the passage is the vampire one? Okay, keep going.
Talk about how they both shift perspective from both of the main characters.
Okay.
And I'm thinking the effect would be something like creates a full understanding of plot.
Okay, we shift from the protagonist to whom?
In worst case, it shifts from the protagonist to the antagonist.
Uh-huh.
Passages both protagonists because neither of them are bad. They're both kind of work together.
This may seem like a little bit of a generic claim, but I think I've got your idea where we're going. So let's just, you know what, don't even type the beginning because we know what it's going to be. In the passage, and worst case, blah, 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 blah. Both this person and this person, here's the meat of your claim. Shift narrative perspectives to extend the reader's understanding of story events. Now I'm saying that's pretty generic because it's not really specified because you said that the understanding is different. We're shifting in one from protagonist to antagonist, and the other from protagonist to protagonist. Can you think of any other novels that you've read, either right now for the IRA or somewhere else, where we have shifting narrative perspectives because we want to explore something from a number of different options?
Last as an exit Brooklyn
Uh-huh.
chapter person.
Excellent. Last Exit to Brooklyn. What else? The Joy Luck Club. Thank you very much. I didn't even thought of that one. I don't know why. Sonia? Picoult loves doing this. Picoult loves to, and I'm not a huge fan of Picoult, but I like certain aspects of Picoult's writing. I think Picoult tries to be as fair as she can to controversial situations by shifting narrative perspectives to a number of different participants in the discussion. Gretchen, did you have another idea? Okay. The Help by Capron Stockett, which is really important because we have white versus black, we have privileged versus unprivileged perspectives there. So that's excellent. Thousand Splendid Suns is fantastic. Two different women living within Afghanistan, both receiving rather brutal treatment from the same man, but and striking up an unlikely friendship. So, Ian, what you're doing is you're tapping into a strategy from authors that's fairly typical. It's nothing unique to these two. But that's fine. And it should be easy to support.
Can I talk about how, in worst case, it shows like what you're just thinking at the same time, but then in the other showing how like their background and why they act the way they do.
Yes, but I would be careful of adding too much complexity to it.
Okay.
I think what you've got here should be pretty easy to work with. If you feel drawn to it and you think that it'll be clear, then go for it. But don't set out to add complexity to it. Nora. We'll put them together. I didn't get a groan out of that. I expected more of a groan. All right, Million Little Pieces, James Frey. One of a couple nonfiction books recently that have been proven to be false. Okay. And what's your secondary subject? Child Called It. Okay. So, which is suspected to be false. All right. Where do you want to go with it?
I was just going to say that they both claim they fabricate their supposedly nonfiction books to make their writing more impactful.
Excellent. Now, I like this. In both The Child Called It and Million Little Pieces, would you say that their social purpose in writing these books is moral or good?
Yeah.
Okay, what is Pelzer's social purpose in writing A Child Called It? Preventing child abuse. Sounds good. I think we can all get behind that one. What is James Frey trying to do in A Million Little Pieces? trying to give an accurate depiction of drug abuse, and they're both trying to do the same thing, right? They're both trying to descend down into the muck and show all the nastiness that's associated with child abuse and drug abuse. All right, good enough. And both of them are fictionalizing it to make it seem more extreme. Okay. It's interesting that if Pelzer has fictionalized this, that we can kind of admire why. Because he wants to make it more extreme because we are so dense that we don't react to anything except the extreme. Right? We're so desensitized that unless there's blood and gore and people blowing up, we're like, oh yeah, huh, huh, ho, hum. So what Pelzer is saying to himself, maybe, if he fictionalized and we don't have proof, is nobody will believe me unless I'm vomiting ammonia. And Frey is saying to himself, nobody will believe me unless I am bleeding profusely on a plane. And so they fictionalize that. Both Frey and Pelzer, blah, 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 blah. Cut too much in here. Fictionalize their histories to emphasize their socially moral message. I might add a sentence of expansion to say this fictionalization always includes exaggeration. Okay? But I was trying to figure out a way to throw that in there, and I couldn't really figure it out. Hey, anybody needs individual assistance, you want the same kind of thing, seek me out, write me an email, do something. Yeah.
So if I find out that I want to use, and then if I go on your website, it's on like
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Sure.
And, like